Chapter 5 The Difficult Decision. Edith has set and prepared the breakfast table with a pot of warm, weak tea, lumpy porridge, especially cooked for their Scottish guest, and cold burnt toast and marmalade. Bertha took her place at the table, looking pale and tired. It was 7:30, and she had overslept. Eamon Ra had already eaten his tasty tin of best salmon and now slept peacefully on his luxurious crushed velvet cushion. Titus drawled over his mountain of meaty food, and Angus greedily hoovered up his morsels as though he had not eaten for an entire year. He cheekily went to finish off Titus's, but the big dog was having none of it and growled angrily at his annoying little visitor. "Edith," said Bertha, raising her voice and standing her spoon upright in the stodgy porridge. "You can hang wallpaper with this stuff, pet. I took the liberty of putting haggis in the fridge last night. Do you think you could possibly cook some for me?" "Oui, madame, but I have never cooked the haggis before," she said, wrinkling her nose. "It's pretty simple. I'm sure you'll manage," said Bertha hopefully. "I look forward to it." She wasn't sure if Edith really would manage or burn the haggis to a crisp, but anything was better than the gooey mess stuck to her bowl. Edith scurried off to the kitchen, muttering unpleasant French words under her breath. "Good morning, dear," said Lady Ludroth, looking as radiant as if she had been to a beauty salon, her hair and makeup perfect. "And how did we sleep?" Bertha wasn't sure how to answer her sister's question. Either she had slept like a baby or seen the ghost of their grandfather. Bertha decided to speak of the latter and shuffled awkwardly in her chair. "Well, you see," she said reticently, "I don't know how to tell you this, but I'll come straight to the point. A very strange thing happened last night. I was in my bed when I suddenly awoke to the aroma of burning tobacco. I opened my eyes, and at the foot of the bed, in the darkness of the room, was the ghost of our grandfather, Harold." Lady Ludroth was gripped and listened intently to Bertha's every word, robotically spooning mounds of sugar into the overflowing china cup until it saturated the saucer and tablecloth. "Goodness me," she said vacantly, mopping the spillage with a handkerchief, her wide eyes still locked on her sister. At that moment Edith shuffled in, her clothes and grey hair smouldering, her face as black as soot, carrying 2 black discs on a plate. Lady Ludroth and Bertha stared blankly. Edith presented the charcoal discs. "Your agas, madame?" she said calmly, as though nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Bertha stared at the plate and smiled politely. "That looks lovely, pet," she said unconvincingly. "A little well done, maybe, but lovely." Edith looked wounded, as if she did not agree with Bertha's verdict on her cooking. "I followed the instructions in the book," she snapped, plonking the plate down and walking off in a huff, muttering a variety of French curses. Lady Ludroth, embarrassed, cleared her throat. Yes, well, as you were saying, dear, Harold appeared. Now, tell me, what happened next?" "Well," continued Bertha, scraping butter onto a slice of burnt toast and disregarding the smoky haggis, "he warned me, or should I say us, that the Serpent of Anata is best left alone. And I'm afraid I tend to agree with him. That serpent has extraordinary powers for good and evil, and in the wrong hands there could be terrible consequences." Said Lady Ludroth thoughtfully, "but I'm afraid someone is looking for the serpent, and I aim to find it first, Bertha, before it finds itself in the wrong hands." "Don't say I didn't warn you. If Harold took the time to return from the dead, Lucinda, he must feel that we are in some kind of danger. But I guess you know what you're doing. Och, aye, you always were a stubborn lassie. Lilith and Isabel waited in anticipation for Lady Ludroth and Bertha to arrive at Wise Witch. Holly Woodruff, Isabel's oldest and most trusted friend, happily volunteered to help out that day. It had grown hotter than ever, and Holly called herself by the fan. Nellie Plackett, an eager but haphazard witch and frequent customer, enthusiastically hunted for potions and herbs. She had kindly offered to do a spell for Mr. Stampit, the proprietor of the local post office. He had explained that nasty gnomes had broken in and had stolen 2 books from his rare stamp collection. Knowing Mr. Stampit, he had probably misplaced them somewhere and they would eventually turn up, but Nellie insisted that gnomes were devious little creatures and had to be warned off. Morag Hagg, president of the village committee, events organiser and general busybody, chatted breathlessly to Isabel. There was always in her possession some kind of important petition she had for people to sign, or a great idea for another seasonal fete, so a generous donation from local shopkeepers was generally required. Unfortunately, Morag had a habit of uncontrollably spraying her attentive listeners with her saliva. Crikey, Isabel, it's hot today. Isabel blinked. Morag was perspiring profusely, wearing a tweed skirt, thick tights, and a frilly white long-sleeve blouse. I thought I'd just pop in and tell you all about the village fete I've been arranging since the beginning of the year. There will be plenty of fun-packed competitions and games to look forward to. It's a shame, thought Isabel, that there wasn't going to be a sponge throwing competition, as Morag would win hands down with her constantly dribbling mouth. No one had the nerve or was too polite to inform Morag of her unfortunate affliction. The residents of Spiton subtly reached for a tissue whenever they found themselves in her company. Your usual donation would be much appreciated, Lilith. One of your books or a compact disc, whatever you wish, anything at all, she said in her usual hurried way. I'm sure you know that we aim to collect extra money this year to pay for the terrible destruction of the village museum. Make it good as new. Such a shame, such a shame. We didn't know, replied Holly and Isabel in unison. It's true, I'm afraid. I don't know who it was, but the damn blighters smashed Price's artefacts to smithereens, and the police think that the culprits were looking for something in particular, she said, angry. That's terrible, said Isabel. Why would anybody do such a thing? Must have flipped their wig, said Holly, obviously a bit nutty. She flicked her long blonde hair and carried on cleaning. You can say that again, sprayed Morag. What is that awful racket? Where is it coming from? Is it coming from outside? At that moment there was a loud droning sound followed by a thick cloud of smoke. Just outside the door, sitting astride her motorbike, was Bertha. Lady Ludroth climbed out of the sidecar looking bedraggled and windswept. It's good to see Lilith's shop is still going. Who'd ever thought it would still be here? Said Bertha, stomping into Wise Witch, looking at everything as though exploring one of her archaeological sites. Morag beamed, although she was somewhat shocked to see a woman wearing full biking leathers. Let me introduce my adorable sister Bertha to you, Morag. She arrived unexpectedly yesterday and has come all the way from her home in Scotland just to visit. Jolly good, said Morag, delighted to meet you, Bertha. And might I add that that's a lovely motorbike you have. How I'd love a ride. Bertha dabbed her wet eyes. Would you kindly refrain from spraying all over my face, Morag? She said abruptly. Everybody was taken aback by this forthright, dispassionate remark, including Lady Ludroth. Bertha, who had always been as subtle as a brick, hurled through a stained glass window, had spoken the unspeakable. They waited with bated breath for Morag to blow a fuse. Morag paused for a brief moment and then let out a hearty laugh. Oh, I do like the Scots. They're so down to earth, she said. And how are the Highlands treating you? Everyone relaxed, breathing easily again. How can I complain? The crisp air of the Scottish Highlands keeps me healthy, and the vibrant sun setting behind the heather-covered mountains captures the hardest soul. You'll have to visit one day. That goes for you as well, Nelly, and bring along that sweet lassie of yours, Rosemary. But promise me you won't cast any of your ridiculous spells. Nelly giggled. Practice makes perfect, dear, she said. What a wonderful Scottish accent you have, said Isabel. Oh, aye, smiled Bertha. Lucinda hates it, really. Of course I don't, dear, said Lady Ludroth, smiling. But, continued Bertha, I've lived in the Highlands nearly all of my life, ever since I was a lass. A handsome Scotsman dressed in a kilt and a sporran swept me off my feet, but he sadly passed away not so long ago. Oh, said Isabel awkwardly, I am sorry. It doesn't matter, pet. I have my little Angus and the spirit of my beloved Hamish to keep me company. Nelly placed her herbs and potions into her large carpet bag, her thick silver bangles jangling around her wrists. Morag hurried off to find other potential shopkeepers to donate to her worthy cause. Holly carefully escorted Nelly to the door, shielding anything fragile or within close range of her precariously swinging carpet bag. Now, we are free to speak, said Lady Ludroth to Lilith cautiously. My sister's unexpected arrival last night happened for a good reason. She lowered her voice. She had one of her visions, you know. Bertha wandered aimlessly around the shop, intrigued by everything she laid her eyes on. She picked things up, minutely studied them, and put them back down. That's great, she said. One of her visions, asked Lilith. What was it exactly? The Serpent of Anata, apparently, said Bertha, overhearing their conversation. I didn't think we should interfere, but Lucinda has an almighty bee in her bonnet to search for it, although I doubt if she'll ever will. The secret of the serpent's whereabouts died with our dear grandfather Harold. The only memory I have of him is a box of old photographs and a handful of moth-eaten letters. Bertha continued, happily exploring the contents of the shop. Lady Ludroth drew a deep breath, looking flabbergasted. Letters? What letters? I've only glanced at them briefly, said Bertha. I don't think they're of great importance. This is a fine cauldron, Lilith, she remarked. Have you ever been to Scotland, Isabel? You must come for a holiday. You're always welcome, lass. Lady Ludroth's eyes widened as though she had a great idea, and it included Isabel. What an excellent suggestion, she said. Isabel and I will follow you back to Scotland tomorrow. By train, of course, won't we, dear? Lilith won't mind, and Holly can help out while you are away. I'll have a word with Diana. I'm sure she won't mind, and besides, she turned to Isabel, you are about to begin your school holidays for the summer. Well, I suppose so, said Isabel hesitantly, unprepared for Lady Ludroth's impulsive decision, and doubtful if her mother would so easily allow her to suddenly disappear up to Scotland. That settles it then, said Lady Ludroth, refusing to take no for an answer. Now we must fly. Bertha. Edith will have prepared tea. Bertha proudly straddled her motorbike, and Lady Ludroth tucked her long hair inside her helmet, loose strands flopping down over her face. Bertha revved the throttle and put the bike into gear. Now, don't go mad, dear, said Lady Ludroth nervously, or I'll look like a scarecrow. They shot off down the road like a bullet from a gun.